Hey, it's Dave. Welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to talk about some guitar pickups. I ended up getting some new pickups for the Strat that I'm putting together. And I got the pickups that I basically use on everything, which is, well, not on everything, but I use mostly, which is a DiMarzio Area 58 in the neck and middle position, and then in the bridge I used the DiMarzio Pro 54. Now, when I first got that set up on one of my Strats, I want to say the first time I put that on a Strat was 2009, and I loved it. I thought it sounded great. I would plug it into my Hot Rod Deluxe Clean. I would plug it into other amps, and it sounded great. So I basically have used that as my main staple of guitar pickups when I use single coils. Well, the other day I had a gig with FM Station and I wanted to bring out my red guitar. And my red guitar has the Pro 54 in the middle position, the DiMarzio Transition Steve Lukather in the bridge, and the Injector neck, which is the Paul Gilbert pickup. And oh, I hated it. I was like, now, they'd probably be great pickups for what I was doing, except every one of my settings was already set for the pickups that I use. So it's like you go on and you use a different setup. It doesn't mean that the new setup that I just mentioned with the transition is bad. It just means that I spent all this time dialing in my sound for the pickups that I use, that when you bring in another pickup, you'd have to re-EQ everything and work the sounds out like to the way you like it. So anyway, that was that. And then I was like, well, you know what? I'm going to go back then I ordered those pickups that I got for the other Strat. And I'll keep the ones that I have with the Injector and the Transition. I have to say, as far as the DiMarzio Transition goes that Lukather uses, it's good. It sounds nice. It's not as good as the Fred. I've been using the Fred since like 91. I loved it. I had it on the guitar that I was just playing. But I was using between the Fred and the 61. That guitar, I have a 58, a 61, and a Fred. And that's probably what I should have done for that red guitar, but I was trying to find something new, and I'm in no big rush to change it. But I do find that like people get crazy about guitar pickups, and they keep trying out different ones, especially the search for the mythical PAF pickup. I had a buddy of mine who owned several PAFs. This was back in the early 90s. And I had just bought the dual rectifier. The 2-channel one, the very first one. It was an early one. And my buddy had a JCM 800 that was Lee Jackson modified. And my buddy had a 950 watt, no reverb. And we set to go to our rehearsal space where we had a space in Braintree, Massachusetts. And we basically ran down the gamut of playing every guitar, seeing what sounded good, which pickups sounded the best. And I have to say, I think the Fred, in my opinion, I liked it better than the two PAFs that we were comparing them to. Although I liked the PAFs a lot, and I thought they had like a lot of good things about them. They were just a little warmer than the Fred, and I thought the Fred had all the goodness but kept the brightness, and I'm always big about losing brightness, so I really dug it. So now, fast forward, you know, many years, so many other people have come up with, I mean, I've tried the PAF 36, I've tried Pearly Gates and all the Duncan stuff, and you know, there's so many different pickups that I've tried. And in fact, I even had Jim Tyler wind me some special pickups, and I thought they came out pretty good, where I was trying to copy what the Fred did. You know, the thing is, it's like it starts to get into a little bit dilettantish, where it's like it really doesn't matter. I mean, it matters to some point. If you have a decent pickup, it's going to sound good. and the rest is your playing. And if you're unhappy with the way you play, you're going to be unhappy with the way the pickup is. There is no magic button or anything like that. A friend of mine called me up the other day and he's like, I want to change my single coils to get that Stevie Ray tone. What do I need? I'm like, lessons. Number one, you need lessons. What else do you need? You don't need pickups, because that's not going to help you. I could give you his whole rig. You're not going to sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan if that's not how you play. And he was like, oh, ha, ha, ha. You know, then he calls me up a day later. You know what I found I like better? I like the Robin Trower pickups. What, you think you're going to sound like Robin Trower now because you're playing Robin Trower pickups? You will sound more like Robin Trower with a fuzz pedal and a univibe than you would by changing any pickup in the world. That shit doesn't matter. And I just think so many people focus on that. You know, for me, I found something that I thought was like ballpark when I found the Fred. I was like, oh, I like this. I like that PAF, but I like the Fred better. And I've been sticking to the Fred. And until I hear a tone where I'm like, what is that? I probably wouldn't try anybody else's pickup. I just don't care. It's unimportant to me. And I can pick up a Fred for $60. You know, I just don't care. And it's like, you know, years ago, I had Jim Tyler wind me a couple of humbuckers. I was running a company, a guitar company, and they were buying DiMarzio pickups. And I thought, well, should we take a look at making our own or having our own made to our spec instead of advertising somebody else's thing? So we did a run of Jim Tyler winding pickups for us. And I called Jim and I said, hey, listen, what are you thinking about a single coil? And he was like, have you heard the DiMarzio area pickups? And I was like, no, I've heard of them, but I haven't heard them yet. He's like, you can't beat it. So for Jim Tyler to tell me that, I said, all right, well, let me go check it out. And that's when I ordered the set and put it on my guitar. And for me, it sounds no better and no worse than a Fender custom shop set that goes on their 50s guitars. To me, it sounds no better and no worse. It sounds just like it. The only difference is that it's noiseless. And for that, I'll buy them. I don't need the noise. I don't have to deal with the crap. And if it sounds just as good as that, you know. Then you get there are these guys that's like, oh no, I only use Jason Lawler. Okay. Oh, I only use Lindy Fralin. Hey, you want to pay that kind of money for a pickup? Great. They're just, I mean, these pickups that you're buying, these Lindy Fralins and the others, they make great pickups. They're good pickups. You know, he makes them to spec. They use nice material. But at the end of the day, I say, who cares? You're taking wire on a bobbin with 6 magnets. There's only so much you can do and everything's been done. That's how I look at it. The DiMarzios, there's something going on because there's noiseless, and if you want, you can go look up the patent number and you can go Google it and you can see the patent and you can actually see how they're making the pickup and what they do. But it's a great sounding pickup that's noiseless. And for that alone, for the fact that it's noiseless, that's why I use them. I just want a quiet rig. You'd be surprised, even with noiseless pickups, you go into a room, if there's a fluorescent light or there's something going on, some type of RF frequency going on, you're screwed. You're fighting it all the way. So the last thing I want to do is help it by going in with pickups that are noisy. Anyways, you know, I basically just wanted to come out today and say, listen, figure out your sound. Figure out what you're going to do. It's not the piece of equipment that's making you be good or be bad. It's you. And so focus on that. And the more you play, like, you know, I practice, like when I practice at home, here, I'll show you, like, I have my B-bender over here. This is my B-bender telly. So when I'm practicing at home, I'm usually just sitting there. You know, I'm not playing with a... I'm playing clean, you know. So when I go to play out of an amp, it's like bonus. I can hear it, you know, but it's like, but I'm used to playing clean and not just playing at like room volume with like, you know, distortion on or anything like that. I'd rather just play clean so when I go to play it plugged in, then it's, then it feels easier because I've been playing a clean sound. So if that's the case, that's a great way to practice. So many haters out there are like, oh, I only use tube amps. Good for you. Good for you. Some people don't. I've seen Billy Gibbons go on tour with a Digi 11 rig. He sounds fantastic. I take a Line 6 Flextone sometimes out with me. Thing sounds great. People come up to me all the time. What is that amp? It sounds great. You can use anything to make you sound good if you play good and you put the work in. And, now I have another Line 6 little thing that I use when I teach. It's like a 15. Yeah, that can't sound good. It's terrible. But whatever. I mean, it's got that little speaker. But actually, I take it back. I had a friend of mine over here the other day showing me one of his guitars, and it actually sounded pretty good through that amp. I was actually like, make that amp sound pretty good. The bottom line is don't go out there looking for, a magic button. I also want to say, I talk a lot about the same topics, and that's because everything comes around circular to me. I'll talk about it. Somebody else will bring up a question for it. So I'm going to answer a few questions and concerns. Pedals. I talk about these pedals that I liked, and I name my top 5, and I'll be talking about other pedals because I ran 2 stores. I've owned probably about 500 to 1,000 pedals over the last 10 years. I played through them enough. I can honestly say I would never buy an Electro-Harmonix pedal ever again. I can clearly say that. I used to have the Electric Mistress Flanger. There's one great sound in there. If you want to sound like the Police, it's great. Otherwise, it's a noisemaker. It's not that great. And it takes up way too much real estate. And then every time I've seen they're either delays or anything else, I just haven't liked them. I played in an open jam, and a friend of mine had the Canyon, whatever it's called. And so I plugged into it. And the second I stepped on the pedal and hit a note, I was actually more jarred by how much the tone of the instrument changed than how the effect worked. I was like, what a... I mean, it just was a tone sucker. It changed the whole EQ of the... I just hated it. I hated it. And then the other guitar player was playing that night, stepped on some pedal. I think it was like one of those organ pedals or whatever. And it literally sounded like noise. I could hear all the interference in the... I mean, I just wouldn't buy one of those. So when I sit and tell you, like... I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm just saying, listen, they don't work for me. I would never buy it. If you want to own one, that's great. If you like it, awesome. I'm just trying to show you stuff that I think I've taken on the road and I've said this stuff works pretty damn good, and and it does. Right now for a delay, I'm using a New Neighbor Echelon Mono. I love it. It's clean. It doesn't affect the tone of the guitar. Stays out of the way. It's excellent. I also use an Alter Ego for a dotted eighth, because sometimes I like to do those, volume swells, and I love that dotted, how it feels on it. And I also have a reverb, the Trinity T2 TC Electronic Reverb. And I also have a New Neighbor Seraphim, which I also use. So, yeah, I mean, again, so like if I talk about a product and I don't like it, it just means that I personally don't like it. And I can basically tell you that about like almost, let's see. There's a lot of Seymour Duncan pickups I don't like. There's a few that I like. And I should say that about everyone. I use a lot of DiMarzio stuff. And Steve Blucher at DiMarzio has been a great guy to me over the years. Super nice guy. The thing about DiMarzio is they also make a lot of like stuff for Ibanez players or whatnot, and guys who I personally don't think have the greatest tone. If you listen to Steve Vai on the first David Lee Roth record, and then go listen to him on his latest record, the sound back then was much better. And of course, I think he was using Steve Stevens Marshall on that album, on the David Lee Roth record. And he had that Charvel guitar with the PAF. You know, now he's using whatever Evolution, Blaze, whatever pickup by DiMarzio he's using. I liked, and I'll just be short with it, I love the DiMarzio Fred. I love the area pickups by DiMarzio, being the 58 mainly. The 61 is good. I don't like it as much. And the Pro 54 I put in the bridge, and I love it. Other than that, like Seymour Duncan stuff, I'm not really crazy about. I love the staple pickup they make, the custom shop staple pickup, fantastic pickup. I think the Pearly Gates is a great pickup. And as far as like the JB and the 59, I think they're trash. And I think it's amazing to me that all these companies come out and everyone puts a 59 in the neck and a JB in the bridge, and they're like, oh, check out my guitar, how it sounds. And they all sound the same. It just sounds so generic, blah. And not a fan. You know, there's some other people that make some great humbuckers out there, and there's a lot of private builders that make, I mean, there's just too many to name. I really don't notice the bad ones unless I notice the bad one. Years ago, I worked for RKS Guitars, and one of my first meetings was at the Canyon Club, and Dave Mason was playing a show, and afterwards we all, I think it was someone's birthday too, it might have been Dave's, I can't remember. I remember a cake back there. I always remember cake.
Cake can actually bring people together. It's Bill's birthday. Yeah, I hate that guy. There's cake in the conference room. Well, I should say hello.
While they were playing, I was like, man, Dave's tone is killing it tonight. And I said, what DiMarzios is he using? And he was like, oh no, those are Duncans. I'm like, those are Duncans? It sounds like they sound so much like DiMarzios to me. I was like, those sound great. I'm like, I gotta find out what they are because I'll buy a set. Now I go back and I'm talking to Dave. And I'm like, hey, what are those Duncans in there? And he goes, Duncans? I have DiMarzios. I'm like, oh, of course they are. Of course. They basically sounded, because it sounded really close to my Fred. And he said it was like a modified PAF that Steve Blucher made for him custom. Which I was like, yeah, of course. It sounds great. And I've never heard a Duncan sound like that. There's a different sound to me. And it's funny, you know, everyone has their own opinion of what they like. We all have tastes, and that's why, you know, that's why there's horse racing. You know, if everyone picked the same horse, there'd be no odds, and there'd be no bet, and everyone would go home. Unless there's a good restaurant at the track, and then, of course, I might stick around. Thank you. You know, don't get wrapped up so much into the gear you're using as to how you play. You know, Jimmy Page on Cashmere is playing a Dan Electro, you know, and it's, you know, like I said, I've said it once before, I'll say it again. It's a piece of junk that sounds fantastic. The guy can play, things sounds good, he's got it, I mean, it just doesn't matter. You know, back in the early days, he was also playing those Supro amps, and, you know, great sounds. You can get great sounds out of anything. Just work. Put the work in. That's all I have to say. You want to sound great? You want to sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan? Put the work in. You want to sound like Robin Trower? Put the work in. Whoever you want to sound like, put the work in. That's where the payoff is. Anyways, that's all I wanted to talk about today. I want to thank everybody for subscribing to my channel. I'm almost at 700, which is very cool. And thanks for all the love. On the Nashville number chart, I think when I put the 4 major 7, I wrote out major 7. That's only because I didn't have a triangle in the number chart. You would use, and in most letter charts too, but you would use a triangle in lieu of the major 7 chords. So in other words, if it's like a 1 major 9, it would say 1 triangle 9. I hope that clears that up for you. Anyways, it's cold outside, and I'm going to watch TV and be lazy. Very good.
How's that for a topper?
You're right on the money. Everything you said. You're right on target. You hit the nail right on the head with your comments, what you're saying today. You're 150% correct.